Two things I want to talk about as it relates to this series. Number one is Minnesota's desire to not put 2 on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, because you brought this up and I immediately was like, Kyrie Irving, you brought up this idea of not a 1A and a 1B or 1 and a 2. It's co-stars. And when I think of co-stars right now, I think of Luka and Kyrie.
Mm-hmm. I said it before the series. The reason I picked Dallas for me primarily was because I don't think Luka's affected that much by length and quickness. He's affected more by strength. And because he plays slower, if you don't give ground on those nudges with his shoulder that he likes to hit you with, if you're not backing up, you're Lou Dort, you're wearing him out a little bit more. You're taking his legs, you're hand on the release. And I think you're going to have to take the ball out of his hands more because he's going to have a lot of success with these matchups, I believe. So that's one adjustment for them. How do you deal with Luka in a different way? Or else I think you're going to get a lot of the same result.
Real quick, because I think you brought this up with Luka in the drop against Gobert, and I want to be very specific on this. And I think this will evolve throughout the series. They want to not put 2 on the ball. And Stan brought this up a number of times on the broadcast. The problem with Luka, and you could put LeBron in this sort of ilk too, Harden for sure, is these bigger guys, when you put 2 on the ball, they can make every pass. They can throw the pass across their body. They can make the behind the back pass to the popper. They can hit the short roller. So you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Gobert in drop versus Luka. This is a crazy stat. In game 1, Dallas scored 1.41 points per possession when Luka was in a pick and roll and Gobert was in drop. For the season, Luka versus drop was the 3rd best player in the NBA at 1.15. So 26 points better per 100 possessions in that game 1 with Gobert in a drop. Despite that, Gobert defending at the rim, Dallas shot 55% when he was on the floor. When he was off the floor, they shot 100%. They were 14 for 14. So it's not, in some cases, both things can be true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like him on the floor helps your team.
Mm-hmm.
They have to figure out the coverage in the Luka pick and roll, particularly in late game. Look, I think the big thing that people talk about with the great players are like, oh, you got to mix it up. You got to mix it up. Yes. Okay. I think you do have to mix it up, but you also have to recognize time and score and what you're willing to live with, what you're willing to give up. And to me, late game, Luka versus drop, I'm not living with that, especially against Jaden McDaniels. I'm just not, because your point on Lou Dort versus Jaden McDaniels, it's valid, right? It's valid. He doesn't play fast. He's got size. He's got strength. He's got width. He's going to body Jaden McDaniels. And so I think in some ways, late game particularly, Minnesota has to look to do something different in that pick and roll with Luka Doncic.
I completely agree. And this is why I trust Luka so much and trust Dallas. And that's why, I think of the people remaining that are playing, and honestly, even going into the playoffs, every single player, with maybe the exception of Jokic, but I'm not even sure that I might put Luka at the very top of the list in terms of, okay, we've just battled for 44 minutes. It could go either way. We've got Luka controlling the action the rest of the way, making all these decisions, whether it's a shot maker or finding someone, whatever's required. I'll take him against anybody. And so the only way that I would feel maybe different is if somehow you're affecting him in the actions he wants to run. And they were not doing that in that moment of the game. Down the stretch, he got what he wanted because he got the coverages he wanted. He has the personnel guard him that he's comfortable with, and what they were doing with the second defender. Very comfy, cozy. You can't let him live in that place, man. He looks good. He's very comfortable with what they're throwing at him defensively. Minnesota's got to do something different. I think you're 100% right. And that's going to be a big part of what we're going to be looking at if you get to a one-possession game again, coming out of that last mandatory timeout. What is Minnesota going to do differently on him?